Welcome to the Lights Out Podcast. This is Chris Lights Out Lytle, and this is our journey to document the history of mixed martial arts. I've brought with me my friend, the MMA detective Mike Davis, and together we will preserve the history and hear some great stories from the world in the era of the no-holds-barred. Thank you and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, special episode of the Lights Out Podcast. I am at a slight advantage here. This gentleman right here, the first 135-pound world champion, Miguel Torres from Hammond, Indiana, the pride of Northwest Indiana. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So Ralph García, you're the one that pieced this together. I've talked to Miguel a couple times in the past on a different channel. Ralph, why don't we start with the plugs? Dude, I really like what you're doing. Let's get this out of the way.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
You know, Miguel, I've been trying to get him on something for years because his story is so unique. So I really wanted him to get on one of these. And what better than Chris Lytle's podcast? This is the best one with Mike Davis.
Yeah. So let's do the MMA Hall of Fame.
Florida Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame. This is our fifth one coming up November 16th, 2024, right here in beautiful Tampa, Florida. We have a lot of big names going in, 15 people going in this year. Some of the big names: Carlson Gracie Sr., Miguel Angel Torres, Rashad Evans, Hector Lombard, and King Mo are some of the big names you'll see on there, plus Dean Toole, who does all the island fights and the game bred fights and all that too.
That's a big night. And I'm going to tell you, like, when I hear Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame, I usually like, oh, yeah, cool. You know, kind of roll my eyes at it a little bit. Ralph, I've been to a couple of your events. They're legit. Like, it's people from different eras, foundational people, like super key people from the old school mixed martial arts community. I can make it. Miguel would probably be a newer guy. It's phenomenal. Like, it's a phenomenal night out, man. It really is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And you've been there. It's a black tie event. It's super nice. And it's about hearing all those old stories and everybody's journey, because everybody has a different journey. And that's what I love about it. It's just listening to all the funny road stories and everything leading up to the fights. And when you fought here, how it was back in the day, you know how it was. It was like sometimes you're fighting, looked like a circus. Another time you're fighting in someone's barn.
Miguel, what are you up to right now, brother, other than growing that mullet out?
Teaching class, man. I train. I have a gym, so I train pretty much people every day. I have like 20 fighters. I have like 300 students. Like, I'm busy. I'm working with kids every day. I got Parkinson's people I work with. I got people that want to fight one day, people that are fighting, people that are pro fighters. Like, I'm just so busy with just taking care of people and then taking care of my family that I figure like I'm getting old, you know. I'm one of those guys that in the old days fought in the bar where they were still smoking in the bar, you know, and they would kick you out because you were 17, 18 after the fight was over. So I come from the old days.
So Miguel, why don't we tell people where your school is located at?
Currently it's in Hobart, Indiana. I don't plan leaving there. I bought the building, so I'll be staying there till I die pretty much. I'll be buried under the mats.
Beautiful facility. So Miguel, when it comes to training, the people that I see come from your school have a very high skill set, but you also you kind of put them through a battery of tests to make sure that they're ready. And a first-time fighter out of Torres Mixed Martial Arts looks like somebody that's got about 10 or 15 amateur fights already. So why don't you describe like your process of like when you know somebody's ready?
Well, for me, when people come to me, pretty much everybody wants to be a fighter, but I understand that you have to have a certain level of skill to be able to handle your business and take care of yourself and win, and not just win by a decision, but win decisively. It's going to take a certain skill set. So for me, it takes like not just anybody can fight. Like, you have to prove to me that you're ready to fight. So that process could take 6 months or 2 years or 5 years. Everybody's different. And I don't give a certain timeline. I just give a certain program. And if you're doing the right things and you're showing up and doing your job, and you get your opportunity.
Oh, here's the thing about Miguel Torres, just so everybody understands. He fought under the headbutt rule set. He fought pre-weight classes, and you were 31-1 before you got the call to the WEC.
Yep.
And like the journey, we're going to go over that journey real quick. We're going to concentrate on the UFC and WEC era. But your first fight on record, March 27, 2000, Finke's Full Contact Challenge. Let me preface this. You're a 50 Fight Club member. You have 50 fights, which is an elite, and it's an elite club to be in. Your fight at Finke's March 27, 2000 against Larry Pullman. Is that your actual first fight on record?
On record, yes. But before that, like before in the old days, there was like fights in the garage or in the backyard, or, you know, like there was gym versus gym fights. And you had to prove yourself to be able to show your instructor that you could make it an actual fight that was considered to be on your record. And in those days, I don't even know if that was like pro and amateur, because like you didn't know who you were going to fight till you showed up. There was no weigh-ins until you got there. And they had 3 scales, a heavy one, a light one, and then a really light one. And the weight classes were like 130 to 160, 160 to 190, and then like 190 to 210 or 220, and then the heavier weights after that. So it was like there was no hand wrapping, there was no medicals, there was no doctors, there was, you know, it was like the old days were different, you know. It was like you got to wear whatever gloves you wanted. There was no, you know, no Vaseline check or anything like that. The old days were crazy. It was like the Wild Wild West.
So how many fights are not on your record?
Oh, that's innumerable. Because there was days that I'll be in the gym and you'd have random guys coming in to just test you, to see what you were about. They didn't want to train, they wanted to spar you, they wanted to fight you. And that would happen pretty much almost every day. So if I counted every fight that I had with somebody that was actually trying to whoop my ass, that I had to like take care of, that number's really high. But actual fights that I got together with my guys, and we went to like a location to scrap against somebody, maybe like 15, 20. But those, for me, that wasn't really fighting. That was more like training, because there was no record. It was not going to count on your record. But they were scraps. But in the old days, because I gym hopped so much, because I was so light and I wasn't a threat to the big guys, to the guys that were deemed fighters, because they were so 155 or higher. No one worried about me. And whatever gym you went to, or whatever guys came to your gym, they didn't come to train. They came to try to whoop your ass. And they made it clear when they got there, you know. They came out like hockey guys that weren't trying to play hockey. They were trying to fight you.
All right. So, like, if you look at, like, the beginnings of mixed martial arts, especially here in the Midwest, there wasn't a very big internet presence, but you found it quick. Like, you were a senior in high school when you first fought?
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you tie into it so fast?
I would say thank you to Rick Morrison. He's an old school guy that started one of the first
magazines.
MMA. I wouldn't even say an MMA channel. It was like a vlog that he would do. And there was a man named Rick Morrison.
Jeremy's dad. Morrison's dad.
Yes, sir. Jeremy Morrison's dad. And he covered every event. And Rick Morrison, in those days, he fought everybody. It wasn't like he just picked and chose. It was like a random fight in Kokomo I was in, and he would show up and he would be there. Rick Morrison fought everybody, and it didn't matter what the weight or whatever. And his dad was always there keeping tabs and posting records and posting what was going on. And I still have his first 2 or 3, you know, articles that he wrote for me. And for me, it's like a special time, because I get to talk, like, look back to people and show them, like, look, this shit was real, because there was no internet documentation besides Rick Morrison. After Rick Morrison, the newspapers, local newspapers, Sherdog picked up some stuff here and there. But Rick Morrison in the old days he was like the pioneer.
Right. So that Jeremy Morrison has got about 20 or 30 fights. You can find him on any fight finder. Direct relation to Jeremy. I do remember getting that rag as well. He would even like print some of them out and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have them up. They're all printed. Yeah, they're all printed. Yeah.
So you tied in that way. When did you realize, who was your first instructor?
Well, I was 7. I did karate, Sensei Marcus, and I would do karate. And there was always a girl, the only girl my size. There was no one else my size in class. Her name was Marla. Don't remember her last name, but when we would spar, they would have us face the wall. And then he would call your name out at random. And you would turn around and walk to the middle of the mat to spar. And my dad would show up to class every once in a while. Of course, he would show up late. And he'd be there sitting there with his arms crossed staring at me. I was so nervous because Marlo would always beat my ass. And I was 7, 8 years old. You know, I didn't know how to fight. And I go out there and I try to. I was thinking in my brain, I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna show my dad I can do this. And we watched Enter the Dragon on Saturday. It's Monday. I'm gonna get her, and she would always get me. And my dad would look at me. He would shake his head like, "No, you're playing soccer." So he put me in soccer, and then from soccer and karate, I started doing taekwondo. And then from taekwondo, I had a different instructor in high school. I had a girlfriend, and her brother was already a senior graduating. And him and his friends had a garage gym. One guy did boxing. One guy did kickboxing. One guy was a taekwondo guy. One guy did wrestling. So it was like a group of 5 guys, and they all had a different set of skills. And they were all going to train to fight one day. And I came in, and the first day, it was like, remember the old days when you would breakdance?
Yeah.
And they would get the big cardboard box, and they'd tape it on the floor, and you would breakdance. That was our mat. We were just sparring boxing. And I got the better of my opponent, who was an instructor. And he literally, with boxing gloves on, picks me up, double legs me onto the concrete floor, and then pulls his glove. He throws his gloves off. They were the old school, not the tie up, but the lace gloves. They were the old school, like the old school gloves that didn't have
Everlast. Yeah, the Everlast.
He threw them off, and then he choked me with my T-shirt. And when he choked me with my T-shirt, I wasn't mad. I was like, dude, what was that? He said, that's Jiu Jitsu. And I was like, dude, I got to learn that. And then I started training Jiu Jitsu after that. And after that, those guys, I trained with those guys for like 7, 8 years. And then it was just, and Eugene Calderon was one of those guys.
Dude.
And he was the last guy.
Yes,
legendary. He stayed with me up until the end, until he couldn't do it no more. And that's how I met Eugene. And I just, it's hard to believe a young kid that's so small to say that he's going to fight and do all these things. But I showed up every day. I was there 20 minutes early. I would set up the mats. I would do all, I would try to train the best I could. And after I left there, I would go to any other gym that was open, and I would go and I would spar and I would train. And that's how it all started.
So you didn't have a traditional instructor?
Not in the beginning, no. It was all in the ghetto, in the harbor.
Okay. Pre-Carlson Gracie, you wouldn't claim any instructor then?
I mean, yeah, Eugene, Miguel Torres, Danny Pantoja, Clifford Radford. There was a group of guys that I trained with. They were training me, but they weren't fighters themselves. They each had skills in different skill sets. And then as I started fighting and gained more experience and started getting better than them, they would kind of, find their way out. And then I would start taking over. At the end, it was just me. And I'm like, well, I guess I got a gym now. I'm going to start, doing this full time and open the gym.
Okay. So I read a long time ago that right around your first fight, your dad had a gallbladder attack.
Yeah.
Because he was so nervous. Like he couldn't.
It wasn't that he was nervous. My dad had an issue where his gallbladder burst in Mexico because his dad was dying. But he didn't know his gallbladder burst. He thought it was the pain he felt was because his dad died. So he never went to the doctor. Then his dad ended up not dying. So my dad came back home. And then he went back to Mexico because the week after his dad was going to die again. And then when he went back, his gallbladder, when it ruptured, all the stones that came out and all that septic acid started messing up his intestines and his appendix and everything else. So he had a lot of issues for a month. He lived that way. He came back home after his dad died. After his dad died, his grandparents died, or his dad's mother and father, my grandparents died. And he kind of or his great-grandparent, my great-grandparents, his grandparents. And he went back to Mexico to bury them. And my grandpa was 105. My grandma was like 99. And so he went through a lot of heartache in a month. And he just thought he was not eating. He couldn't eat. He couldn't drink. He couldn't do anything. So he left at 165. He came back 120 pounds. And then the second day he came back, he was going to work still, working at the mill. He passed out in his room. He passed out, called the ambulance. They thought he had stomach cancer because he had when they did the barium swallows and whatever a test, he couldn't do them. And so they did like a MRI, a CAT scan of his stomach, and he had all these masses in his stomach. So he did exploratory surgery. Turned out that his appendix ruptured and fucked up all this other shit in his stomach. So they had to do like a big process to get him out. And he ended up coming out okay. But he was in the hospital for like 6-7 months. And I was already fighting. I was playing soccer in Dalton, Indiana. And I don't know if you guys around the world know what Dalton is, but Dalton's a little bit kind of crazy.
Well, wait, Miguel, they're actually famous right now for their mayor.
Okay, so they know the mayor, Tiffany Hayes.
The crazy
All right.
mayor that's on Google
right.
search Dalton mayor. Dude, it's pure comedy.
So I was
It's
playing
fantastic.
indoor soccer there. And there's no playing soccer there. It's like you're fighting somebody or you're fighting 5 guys. And I was like, why am I fighting for free, paying to play here and just fighting people? And I could just fight and make money. So I started doing these fights, but I didn't tell my dad the first 6-7 fights. And then my 7th fight, I started getting like a reputation for being the small guy that beat up big guys.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. You fought at Finke's.
Yeah.
So Finke's, so everybody at home could understand, it's you had people fight with big belt buckles on. You had people fight with like cowboy boots on. It was who from the audience has got a problem with each other. Get on up here. That's where Miguel fought, right?
Yeah, that was the beginning. I fought drug dealers, gangbangers, Marines, boxers, wrestlers. I in the beginning, I fought tough guys. I fought everybody, whoever wanted to take a challenge. That was nice that I didn't have a fight, or I would beg people in the audience, hey, bro, I'm looking for a scrap. I got to fight somebody tonight. Like my first fight, I won, I think, in like 10 seconds.
All right. What did you get paid for those?
I was mad because like I was training my whole life for this one big moment, and it was over. And I was looking for like a scrap, you know,
a war.
And the fight was over. And they raised my hand, and I was like nodding my head. No, man, I want to do it again. And they're like, dude, shut up, pick up your hands. That was Eugene, by the way. It was hilarious.
How much did you get paid for those Finke fights?
The first 7, nothing. My dad found out around 7, 8. He had a bunch of friends from work, from the mill. They came to the fights, and they watched me fight. He's still in the hospital, by the way. And I would visit my dad every day after school or after work. And I go visit my dad like on a Tuesday. And because we fought on Mondays, because Finke's slow day was Monday. It's a bar. So they had the fights on Mondays. And I went on a Tuesday, and he goes, hey, how was the game? Because we played soccer on Monday nights. And I would tell him, oh, we lost. You know, the game was crazy. We got into a fight. And he goes, oh, how much did you get paid? And I was like, oh, I don't get paid to play soccer. He goes, no, for your fight. All my friends told me that you were at the fight. You were fought. And I looked at my dad, and I picked up my hands, and I was like stoic. So I don't fight for money. I fight for respect. My dad from his hospital bed, after all these surgeries that he had, smacks me in my face. He got tubes in his nose, IVs. He smacks me. He's like, you got to get paid. That guy made money. My friends paid $50 a ticket, and they bought alcohol and T-shirts and all this stuff. And so I go to my promoter, who I won't say his name, but I go to my promoter, who was the guy I was fighting for. And I'm like, hey, man, I want to get paid from now on. He goes, okay, I'll give you $100. And that was the first time I got paid. I got paid $100 for my first fight. Well, for my 7th fight after I fought 7 times straight. But in the beginning, for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about the recognition and building a name and having respect.
You're Mexican. You're Mexican, bro.
Yeah, I was trying to be stoic, you know.
Yeah, a 10-second fight. No. I want to bleed. I want to get knocked down. No, Mexicans, dude. That Mexican style of fighting, greatest style.
There was 2 fights that I had at Finke's where I beat the guy, and the guy got up and said, I didn't tap. And I was like, let's do it again. And the promoter would be like, one more fight.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd, because there was a balcony and a lower floor level. And the whole crowd starts chanting, one more fight. So I fight the same guy twice in one day sometimes.
Dude, the first time I ever saw you fight, and we're going to kind of go through your amateur career. We're not going to spend a lot of time here, or your pre-UFC WEC career. The first time I saw you fight was November 18, 2000, the MMA Invitational. It was in Hammond. You had a pretty big crowd there. That's like when you really had your reputation. You fought Jesse Gudenschwagger.
Gudenschwagger. Yes, sir. He gave me a detached retina, that jerk.
Okay, but you broke his jaw. And I remember,
kind is kind.
Ralph, here's the thing. the guy is tough as like the guy was legit tough. Like he was a legit tough guy because the mouthpiece wouldn't stay in his mouth. Like he wanted to keep fighting with this broken jaw, but because the mouthpiece wouldn't stay in, the doctor stopped it.
Wow. Yeah, it was 2 5-minute rounds.
And he was a lot heavier than you.
And standing up, I was getting the better of him. But when he would take me down, he was so tall, he could be in my guard and hold me down without having to like lean forward. He was able to like posture and hold me down. He was like 6'2", 6'1". He would pick up his fist in the air and he would throw these bombs. And I would move my head out the way and I would try to up kick him and get back up or submit him. But he was so strong when he held my arms, I couldn't really wiggle or move. And in the second round, he took me down and he threw a punch. And when he threw the punch, he had his thumb like this. And he missed the punch. And you can hear it in the video. He hits my eyeball. And the eyeball sucks in and makes that noise. It makes like a suction noise. And then he stands up to throw another bomb. And when he stands up, I threw a big-ass up kick and hit him right in his jaw. And I didn't know I broke his jaw. I hit him. He stands up and backs away. I get up. I piece him up with some hands. The round ends. I'm exhausted. And in this fight that I had, if you guys ever seen the documentary Choke?
Of
with
course.
Carlson Gracie, you know, he had those white Tudo shorts.
Yeah.
I wanted those for my first big fight in like an arena like the Hammond Civic Center. And they didn't sell those. I didn't have the internet to find it online. And so I went to Walmart to find the best that I could. You know, the football, they have those long tights that go to your knees.
Yeah.
I had to buy a pair of those, but they were too long. And I was really skinny. I was like 130 pounds. So I cut them in half. And when I put them on, they were see-through. So I'm like, fuck. Can I cuss?
Yeah, dude, we don't care, dude. We don't make any money on this, dude.
I'm just saying, all right. So I was like,
please do.
Like, fuck, man. So I'm driving like at 2 a.m. the night before my fight to go buy another pair. So I got 2 pairs, cut them the same size, put them on. So they were solid white and they were mid-thigh. I walk into the boxing ring. This is the first fight my mom went to. My dad didn't go to it. He's still in the hospital. I had all my friends from hospital, from the grocery store I worked at. Like I had all the people from school. And as I'm walking in to the ring, when I stepped through the ropes, from being mid-thigh tights, they went to be like tighty-whitey underwear. So I'm in the cage because I know how you step through the ropes, you got to pick up your legs.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to pull them down, but there's 2 pairs on, and I have gloves, so it's hard to like get them down. And then I didn't know who I was fighting yet, so they call out Jesse Gudenschwagger, and I see this just giant white dude walk into the ring.
How much?
And I can hear my mom. I can hear my mom. He was probably like 160, 170. I can hear my mom in the front row. Stop the fight! No, no! My mom's screaming this. I'm looking at her trying to fix my tights. And my friends are trying to pull her out of the arena because she's like getting up, trying to get in the ring herself. And this guy comes in and he just looked like Frankenstein. He had the big square head and the big jaw, long arms. And I'm like, holy shit.
Wait. Ralph. She went from being in the ring screaming, stop the fight. They moved her upstairs, and from the upstairs, she was yelling, "Stop the fight!"
Same thing, yeah.
It was just more echoey. But
I'm like 19, 20 years old. Yeah,
yeah, dude. That was crazy shit, man. That was crazy. So here's some crazy, some other things about Miguel that people might not know. In the year 2000, obviously, there's some undocumented fights there. You went 9-0 with 7 finishes. The 2 people that went to a decision with you outweighed you by quite a bit. In 2001, you're still messing with Finke's. You also fight for Cage Rage, Chad Wagner's Cage Rage.
Yeah.
Did you get paid well for that?
I got paid. Yeah, I think I got paid like $400, $500.
That's pretty good back then, dude.
It was very good back then. But I was driving to Kokomo, Indiana, and I didn't realize what Kokomo, Indiana was. So we rent a Mustang, me, Eugene, and Cliff. We drive down. We get there, and we walk into weigh-in. And it was like everything just stopped. All the music, everything stopped. And everybody turns around and stares at us. And I like take a step back, like, oh, shit. And then we walk in, and then people start talking to me. Like I see the Confederate flags and you know, all the stuff, you know, all the memorabilia. And I'm like, oh shit, bro, we're in the devil's lair here. And then the day of the fight, what the fuck's his name? It was Mark Coleman and Kevin Randleman are there. And Mark Coleman's training this kid who I'm gonna fight. And he's like the UFC champ and the Pride champ at the same time. And there's like he's doing autograph signings. And I'm like, man, this is crazy, dude. Like, I'm being set up here. We were fighting in a boxing ring that had like a dog kennel cage built over it. Yeah. It wasn't like a real cage. It was like a ghetto cage. And I touched gloves with that guy that I was fighting. And we touched gloves.
Josh Mason, for the record. Josh Mason.
As soon as we touch gloves, he changes his level and shoots on me and takes me down to the corner. And because it wasn't a cage, the corner is an actual corner. And they had the fence was not coated. It was like a regular fence. And my back hits the fence and scrapes down. And I have I can feel my back is bleeding. This guy's trying to ground up on me. I heel kicked him like 200 times. All over his back, the side of his head, whatever I could reach. And the round ends. Second round comes in. He wants to touch gloves again. And I was like, I nodded my head no. That was the last time I touched gloves with somebody because of that fight. So in my future fights, like in WC and UFC, I didn't want to touch gloves when the fight was going to start because I didn't want nobody to do that cheap shit to me again. And I end up hitting him with the big shot. I put him in a reverse triangle, and I must have elbowed him in his head like 20 times. 10 or 11 with the left, 10 with the right. And I elbowed him so many times in the reverse triangle. Because in the old days, you could hit the top of the head, the back of the head. There was not a real, great area for stuff like that. It was like you hit the head, and that was it. And I could feel my bursa ripping when I was elbowing him because it was all skull. So when that one ripped, I switched to the other hand and then started elbowing and just throwing. And I ended up submitting him, knocking him out. Fight ends. I walk out the cage. The only person in the crowd that was there for me was my uncle, who drove 2 or 3 hours. And he's got a friend with him. And he's the only Mexican dude. And his friend that his brought was a black dude. And they're the only guys in the crowd standing up cheering for me. They play mariachi music and shit. They play my music. And the whole crowd was just standing up looking at me like, I was nervous. We go to the back. Josh comes in the back. Paramedics are helping him walk in. They're checking his eyes. His pupils were the size of his eyes. They were so huge. Took him because he had a concussion.
Clearly.
It was mild, of course. And that's when Kevin Randleman snuck me into the hip hugger. I was like 19, 20 years old. Him and Mark Coleman go to the front to talk to the security guards. Of course, security wants to take pictures. He grabs me by the hip and just pushed me behind him. I walk in, never had alcohol in my life, never been into a strip club. And when I got pushed into the strip club, the bartender's like, I'm at the bar. I have no friends with me because they're all in the front still. And he's like, what do you have? Yeah. And I had no idea what to order. And because I watched The Big Lebowski 1,000 times, I'm like, let me get a White Russian. And everybody at the bar stops and looks at me like, a White Russian. And I was like, we don't have any cream. And I'm like, well, then just a Russian then. And then that was the rest of the night. Shit was crazy. Good time, though.
Dude, Kevin Randleman and Coleman, they were like an evil tag team, man. Like, you wanted no part of those two. Yeah.
They were monsters, man. They were monsters. Yeah. Pioneers.
Yep. There was a fight, November 10th, 2001. You fought a tournament. And I'm not sure if you knew this or not at the time, but all right, let me give you a little history right here. Carlson Gracie's in Rio. He moves to California. The third Carlson Gracie gym that ever opens is Jeff Neal's. So some stuff happened with the Brazilian top team, the split. Carlson moves here, and he goes specifically, asked Jeff, who am I looking at? And he said, Miguel Torres, Henry Matamoros. Both of you guys fought that night.
Yeah.
Let's talk about meeting Carlson Gracie.
I did know who he was, Like when I met him, he seemed like a sage, wise man that's been in the business, like a Mr. Miyagi. But I was so pumped doing what I think I fought 3 times that night.
Yes.
I was so stuck in what I was in, I didn't realize who he was. And at this time, I didn't have an instructor in jiu-jitsu, just videotapes, magazines, whatever you could find in the store. Some of the friends that knew some catch wrestling stuff. And I started training with De La Riva. I would go to Brazil once a month or once a year for a month. And when I would go down, I would train with De La Riva. And then De La Riva was the one that told me, he goes, hey, man, you keep coming to Brazil, spending all your time here. My instructor trains fighters. I don't train fighters. I train jiu-jitsu people. He goes, my instructor, Carlson Gracie Sr., he's in Chicago. Because in the old days, I would tell people I was from East Chicago, Indiana, but nobody could understand what that meant. So they would hear Chicago. Oh, he's from Chicago. So then I got back from Brazil, go to Carlson's. Then when I got to Carlson's, he was in Brazil. Just went to Brazil. But I met Stephan Bonnar and I met Jay Velko. I met all the guys from the old days and started training with them. And then Carlson comes. And as soon as Carlson came to the gym and we synced, we shook hands. He gave me a hug. He told me he was going to make me a world champion. And I told him, no, bro, I'm already a world champion. I just got to get my time. And that was the relationship, how it started.
Dude, Senior was the friggin' man.
He was my Mr. Miyagi. He was.
So we've had several instances where people were on here and people that like were fighting against his guys, where he would go see them at like right after weigh-ins, look at what they were eating. You can't eat this. You can't eat that. What are you doing? You need this. Yeah. Come on.
Carlson was one of those guys where like he wasn't your father, but he was your father. He couldn't tell you what to do, but he could tell you what to do and you would listen. He was the kind of guy that will walk into a room and he would say hi to everybody, talk to everybody, flirt with the waitresses, go in the kitchen and talk to the cooks, tell him how he wanted his food made, and nobody stopped him or told him shit. He had one of those personalities that people would just want to listen and hear him talk and hear him speak. He always had something like a wise word to say or a trick to do or magic or whatever. He was one of those characters that he can go anywhere in the world and have a good life.
In 2001, you went 8-0 with 7 finishes. Pretty incredible. Like your finish rate, like when people talk about the current UFC status at the lower weight classes, the biggest thing that they talk about is the finish rate of some of the fighters and the lack thereof, where you were the exact opposite. Pre-trained Miguel Torres finished people. The Total Combat Challenge, I remember being at another tournament that you fought in. You fought Craig Williamson, you beat him by triangle. Your second fight is against Brian Czar. That guy, in my opinion, like people aren't going to know ever who he is. The guy was legit tough. He was tough. Beat Bart Pelligrino in order to get the opportunity to fight you. That's legit. That's as legit as it gets.
I mean, for the time that I was living and the time that I was fighting, even when I was fighting in the big leagues, I never took an easy fight. I fought whoever was the next up-and-coming guy that wanted to take the challenge. But I was looking to get paid, I was paying for college and taking care of my gym.
In 2002 of October, you and Jeff Curran were supposed to fight. That was like the first time you guys were supposed to cross paths. Why did that bout never take place?
I tore my ACL. I was training with one of the Durlacher guys, Kowalski.
John Kowalski. Future Ultimate Fighter.
We were training in a boxing ring, and they didn't have a canvas. They had a tarp, and the corner where they give you water, there was water on the floor. My leg slips in between his legs, and he slipped forward. So when he fell, he hyperextended my knee. And I had a motorcycle. I drove to the gym at the time. And I screamed, I yelled. I was paralyzed for a minute. I wiggled my toes. I did a Kill Bill. Wiggle your toes, move your ankle. I moved my leg. I got up. And when I got up, I threw a jab to try to spar against. I'm a dumbass. As soon as I threw the first jab, I literally felt my ACL snap. And then I went home. I got my shit. I left. And when I got on my bike and I was trying to put my feet down, I could feel my knee buckle inside. And when I felt that, I worked at a hospital in X-ray. So when I went to work the next day, I got an MRI right away because I knew people and I knew doctors and shit. So I got hooked up and my ACL was torn.
Well, wait.
And so I was out for about a year. And after that fight.
So your accident happened at work is what you're saying.
Yes, it happened at work. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's
For
very
insurance
important.
purposes.
Very
Yes, sir.
important.
Yes, sir.
So,
So
go ahead.
after that injury, I got surgery. I got rehabbed and came back. I fought Ryan Ackerman, but I was out for I wasn't a year. I think it was 7-8 months. I turned around. I was working within a week.
So in 2002, you fought 3 times, 2 of which were on the same night, 2 finishes. The one decision you had was against Lindsey Durlacher. He was an early old school G2 guy that just kind of, take down, hold you. I mean, you put a lot of work in.
D1 Greco wrestler. This guy had, he threw the fuck out of me, huh? This guy made my feet go in the air, but every time I landed, I took his back or put him in a choke. But he wouldn't quit. He was one of those guys that was just he was one of the old school tough, like a Mark Kerr or Steve. He would just come forward and take you down and try to beat your ass.
So November 22nd, 2003, Ironheart Crown. It's your first fight back in about a year. And Mustafa Husseini was your original opponent. And it's Shudo rules. So in Shudo, they have a standing 8. They also have what is called a catch. So if you're close on a submission, referee holds up a C. 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, go ahead, Ralph. Referee holds up a C. They give an extra point. It's kind of like a knockdown.
Make it a 10-9 round. Yeah.
A week out, they pull in a very accomplished, I think he's a Division III wrestler, Ryan Ackerman from Wisconsin. You came in with a full mariachi that night.
Yeah, I remember that.
Ryan Ackerman snapped your 25, 26 fight win streak.
Yeah, I fucked that up. The first round, I had him in a triangle, 2 minutes to go. Instead of finishing the triangle, I mounted him with the triangle. And instead of finishing from the mount with an arm lock or a choke, I decided to punch him in the face, try to beat him up. And I had a pack. This is the first time I made t-shirts for the academy and my logo and everything. So I was out for a while. So I had a bunch of fans that were waiting to see me fight again. And I did knock him out. His head popped out. He gets up. The round ends. And then when I walked back to the corner and I sat down, when I walked back, my legs are wiggling. When how Bambi, when they were first learning how to walk, and they have those wobbly legs. First time in my life I ever had wobbly legs. But I had an ACL surgery before that fight. So my legs weren't used to that kind of, pressure. And I look at Eugene, and I told Eugene, dude, my legs are dead. And they started putting ice on my chest and started fanning with a towel, giving me water. And it went 2 more rounds. He got the better of me with the ground and pound. I couldn't finish.
Hey, here. This is where I have issues. He definitely, on a standard MMA fight, for judging, he won the fight. That's for sure. But how many submissions did they not count? Close submissions. Well,
there was no catch rules, no catch rules in those days for the American events.
There was not, because some referees were calling it, others were not.
Yeah. So, I mean, it hurt my ego huge. I didn't get the decision. And I let down a lot of people that day. But that day made me a better person because I had to go back to the drawing board and make sure I would never get my legs tired again and never get winded. And I changed my training regimen and became who I became after that. And I eventually lost after about a year or 2.
Yeah. I mean, you bounced back against Mustafa Husseini. You made him pay, one of Keith Hackney's old students. One of the first times where the promoters locally, they were really pushing you. I'm not going to say they were trying to get you beat. All I can tell you is there were some questions whether Miguel was going to win or not because of some of their backgrounds. Yeah, the guy you were fighting. So Alex Khanbabian, the Blade, came in from American Kickboxing. He's got Brian Ebersol in his corner. That. I mean, another tough fight.
Yeah, those are the fights when I started having Carlson in my corner.
Yes.
So I guess his instructor in Jiu Jitsu was a Carlson black belt, and he was allowed to come to the gym. So I didn't know who this guy was, and I have a lot of Serbian friends, and this guy was a Serbian guy, and we got to know each other. And he's watching me train, helped me do stuff. And after the fight, Carlson told me that guy's training your opponent, and I was so mad. And Carlson's like, it doesn't matter. So you're gonna crush this guy. I had wrestled Alex Khanbabian in the Pan Americans as a blue belt in the finals, and he beat me by an advantage. I didn't know how to pass the half guard, and I had won 6 matches, and then I had him in the finals. He was my 7th match, and I didn't know how to pass the half guard. Actually, Meganton Diaz was the referee on that match, and I was like stuck in his half guard for 2 minutes. I didn't know how to get out. I lose by an advantage. After that fight, he found out I was an MMA guy, and he fought MMA. So then he, set up the fight. And when we fought at the Civic Center, I ended up breaking his arm in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Was there little head games going on your end in regards to
No, in those days, my head games was, I'm going to train so hard and do so much that when I look at you in the eyes, I'm going to steal your soul. And if you don't look at me in the eyes when we weigh in, I stole your soul already. Like I had a very like alpha mindset back then, where like if you didn't put the time in, I would see it. Like a Mike Tyson mindset. If you flinch, if you blink, if you look away, if you smile, I already beat you.
And let's keep in mind, like at these fights, there's every bit of 5,000, 5,500 people there. Like you were making more money there than you would in the UFC.
Yeah, in those days, yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. After that, I don't know if you remember this or not. So I'm like kind of cleaning up, helping out at the end of the event. Carlson Sr. runs into Liborio and Conan. Go ahead.
I'm going to tell a story of what I witnessed. All right, so
please.
All right, so let me clean my mullet real quick. So that was the day that I was supposed to fight Jeff Curran, but my ACL was torn, and one of the judges for the fights couldn't make it, and I showed up, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for an extra judge. We'll give you a ticket, and you could judge the fights." And I was like, "Nah, man, I don't want to judge fights." And I think it was Eric Moon. And there was one other guy. I don't know who it was. That was a judge, and they had me. I ended up saying yes. And that night, Stephan Bonnar fought against Terry
Martin.
And for those who don't know, Stephan Bonnar's he's like the American Psycho. He's like good-looking guy, white dude, tall, big muscles. And you got Terry Martin, who's the Dolomite. This guy's like a Mike
gangster
Tyson,
disciple,
brick house gangster. So you have Stephan Bonnar's crowd from Chicago, the nice side, and you got Terry Martin's crowd from the hood, and you got this fucking little Mexican dude that's a judge who doesn't want to be a judge. And the fight was an amazing fight. It was a battle. It was back and forth. Stephan used clean boxing. Terry came in with wild punches and would rock him. Stephan would, recuperate with submission attempts and stuff like that. It was a back and forth battle. And one of the judges gave it for Terry, one gave it for Stephan, and it was on me. So I was like, well, I thought Stephan won the fight because of technique and, his strategy. And Bob Shermer got mad. And started trying to start a fight with me. Like, who's the judges here? And all the other 2 guys, they pointed at me. And he's like, who are you to judge a fight? And, you're as old as my last shit I took and all this stuff. And they separated us. And while
he was right.
He
may have been right on that. He may have been right on that comment, though, at the time.
I know he is, but I still wanted to fight Bob Shermer. I was mad. But I'm like, I got a bad knee. Shoney Carter was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. At that same time, I guess Carlson was leaving with Stephan. And they ran into Liborio and the guys from ATT. And as I was walking out, this old dude was talking. Mind you, I didn't understand half of it. I didn't speak Portuguese at the time. He was talking so much shit to this other guy who looked like a monster. I didn't know who Liborio was yet either, And this is before
Conan.
This is pre-internet, all right? Pre-internet.
Conan. Yeah.
And this old dude is like, he's talking so hard, so much shit, he's spitting in the air. And I'm just like, that guy's a G. I just kind of like scurry around him and walk to my car and leave. But I was there for that night. That shit was crazy.
So it was Conan Silveira, Liborio, Carlos Diaz, and you, dude, I tell you, Carlson Gracie he could like read a situation. All right, these guys are all together on the same team. But Conan, he ain't gonna do shit to me. Carlos Diaz has got respect for me. They can't even tell me anything. And dude, Conan or in Carlson Sr., man, bro, he was willing to fight all three of them. And I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah.
I remember watching it going, what the fuck? JZ Cavalcanti, Thiago Alves said, we want nothing to do with this, and left. Yeah.
That was the first time I met Jay-Z, who I ended up training with the Black Zayans in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Ralph, little side note here. The Ultimate Fighter Season 1, the most watched fight probably in the history of MMA, including today. Miguel Torres was in the corner of Stephan Bonnar.
Yep, Stephan versus Forrest Griffin.
Stephan Bonnar, Forrest Griffin, April 9th, 2005. Miguel, what was it like being in the corner?
It was surreal because I was coming to an event that I watched the first UFC. I was 12 years old. And when I watched the first event and I seen Royce Gracie do his thing, I was enamored by it. You know, I fell in love with fighting. I knew I wanted to fight. I wanted to be a boxer, maybe a kickboxer, something like karate. But when I seen Royce Gracie do his thing, I don't know, it made me it brought up like a stirring in my heart where I knew I could do this. And to be at an actual UFC event and be in the corner behind the stage, see Dana White in the production, it gave me like a sense of like, you can do this, man. If I was able to handle Stephan Bonnar and he's fighting in the, on TV and on a TV show, of course I can do it too. It's just we didn't have a weight class yet, Even Dana came to Carlson at the weigh-ins. I think it was outside the Hard Rock Hotel in the parking lot. They had the weigh-ins. And Dana comes to Carlson, and I was like Carlson's shadow. Wherever he went, I was right behind him. And he was like, do you have any guys at 155? And Carlson turns around, or do you have any other fighters, that put on the TV? And Carlson points at me, and Dana looks at me, and he goes, how much do you weigh, kid? And I'm like, 135 pounds. And he goes, eat some meat, and then come talk to me in a couple years. And then that was the first interaction I had with Dana White. And that's how I knew like I was meant to do something like that. Because I had Carlson behind me. People were looking for guys to come in there. I was training guys that were fighting in those shows that for me at that time were guys that I could handle. So I knew I was able to be at that caliber. I just needed the right time in the right place.
Stephan Bonnar in between rounds. Like it's rock'em sock'em robots, the punch. It's a Gotti Ward type war. What are you saying to Stephan in between rounds? Do you remember?
I was trying to talk to him, but Carlson speaking in Portuguese. And then Stephan had a boxing coach with him. I forget the guy's name. He had real long, scraggly hair.
Is it Steve Connell? No.
Yes, Steve Connell, yes.
Okay. O'Connell.
And he had the bandana all the time, and he had the long hair, and he was Stephan's Golden Gloves boxing coach. So I have one guy screaming at me in Portuguese, tell him to take him down, tell him to use Jiu Jitsu. And I had the other guy telling me, tell him to use it. And as he's telling me to tell him to use a jab, he's throwing jabs at my face. They're like a centimeter away from my cheek. And I'm trying to tell Stephan to calm down. I'm trying to give him my own wisdom. So we had three guys talking to one guy every round. Carlson speaking to Stephan. Stephan does not understand Portuguese. The other guy's trying to talk over Carlson. And I'm like right behind Stephan in his ear, like, dude, calm down, settle down, look for the overhand right. Stephan broke his hand. He had broke his left hand in that first, I think he threw or his right hand. It was one of the big bombs he threw in the first round. He had broke his hand. So, I knew because he had told me he broke it. So I kept telling him like to flicker his jab and it was just chaos. It was chaos. It was one of the first fights that I actually cornered. That was like a really big event. I had fought numerous times, but whenever I fought, I didn't need a corner. My corner was there. If they told me anything, I didn't hear shit they said because I was so busy staring at the other guy's face or trying to stare at the other guy that I couldn't even hear what they were telling me. I was like, give me some water, give me a towel, and be quiet. So this is the first time I cornered somebody, and it was complete chaos. And you only get like 60 seconds, and it was nuts. It was a surreal time. It was an amazing time.
So that fight, went viral. I mean, it was like the first viral moment of mixed martial arts. Were you shocked at like, I mean, I couldn't believe just like how far it went and how many people finally understood what the sport was. Was that a pretty surprising moment for you as well?
No, every culture, every I've been to a lot of countries around the world. Every culture appreciates violence. Violence is a language. You either speak it or you don't. But even if you don't speak it, you can appreciate its beauty because there's a certain nuance to fighting that any culture could appreciate and understand. It's how they understand it and how they appreciate it. But everybody respects fighters. And I knew it was going to blow up. It was just a matter of time. And when I was playing in Hammond, I was so popular because MMA was illegal in Chicago. Illinois outlawed MMA for a while. So all the promoters from Chicago came to Hammond because it was the closest town to Chicago. And they had all these big name guys from Chicago, but they needed a local guy or a couple local guys. And I was the guy that brought the seats in. And I would sell 200-300 tickets a fight, you know. I think I sold that Civic Center out like 3 or 4 times.
Okay, wait, stop. You did not sell 200 or 300 tickets. That's a lie.
Must have been more.
That was what, dude. I have, dude. Your last 3 fights with me, I remember like here's 25 grand. Like,
yeah,
what? Like what? Yeah, no, dude. 200-300. That ain't shit. No way. Way higher. I tell you, like, so you beat Richard Nanku, and Keith Palmer he's Chris Lytle's original boxing coach, and he's kind of going back and forth with the WEC with Lytle, and he gives me a call, and he goes, "Hey, dude, what's the breakdown on a 135-pound division in the Chicagoland area?" And I'm like, "Well, why?" He's like, "Well, Reed Harris, those guys, Mark Smith, they want to just develop that 135-pound division and create an actual world champion." So I ranked you guys. I said, Torres is number 1. You got Chase Beebe, super tough wrestler, and Eddie Wineland. And they're like, well, it's for Antonio Benuelos. They don't want the belt to travel. And I said, well, they're like, what about Torres? I go, you're not going to be able to afford him, first off, because he makes so much money here. But 2, he's probably one of the best in the world, if not the best. Okay, what about Chase Beebe? He's probably top 5 in the world. What about Eddie Wineland? He's also probably top 5 in the world. There's nobody that you're going to take from this area that's going to lose to that guy. They take Wineland. Wineland wrecks Benuelos. Beebe beats Wineland. You beat Beebe. Like you had the top 1, 2, 3, maybe 1, 2, 4 in the entire world within 90 minutes of driving.
Yeah. And Wineland beat Benuelos. And after you told Eddie he was going to fight Benuelos, Eddie started training with me after that. So I trained Eddie for like 6-7 months before the fight happened. I was his only cornerman at the event. I was there for Nate Diaz's first MMA fight. That's where I first met Uriah Faber. He scoped me out, seeing who I was, and it was like the beginning of everything. I took Eddie. We cut weight in the bathroom. I put him in the bathroom with the shower on high heat, hot water. I got newspaper and tape and taped the door shut and just locked him in there for like 30, 40 minutes. He almost died twice. That was and he knocks him out with the same combo we were training for the whole event. So it was an amazing, amazing journey.
When you fought Bobby Gamboa at the Absolute Fighting Championship, was it the first time you met Dean Albrecht?
No, I didn't meet Dean till after my first WEC fight. And that was because I was already cornering Stephan for big events. And Dean was his manager. And I was like the guy that was like the in-between because Stephan was sleeping or training or doing whatever. So I was the one that was the contact. And my first fight, I wore a Torres shirt, playing shorts, fought on TV, won. And Stephan's talking shit to me at the gym the next day. He's like, dude, you could have made an extra 20 grand, 30 grand if you wear a hat or a T-shirt for these guys. And at that time, again, it wasn't about the money. It was about the respect, and it was about whatever. Right. But when he told me, because I only made I think I made my first WEC fight 20 grand. And that was because Bodog offered me a 10-10 contract to fight Ryan Diaz. But then that fight never happened because the tsunami happened in Thailand, and Ryan survived that tsunami. Then he got out of fighting, so it never materialized. And then Sean Shelby hits me up, and he's like, "Hey, we want you to fight." You know, he gave me I think it was like 2-2 or 4-4, and I'm like, "Dude, get the fuck out of here! I make more of that fighting in my hometown." So I sent him the contract from I sent him the contract from Bodog, and then he responds back like the next day, and he approved it. So I was like, "Dude, I can make more from sponsors than from fighting." So then I got Dean on my side, and that ended up being a whole shit show.
So Bodog and Miguel Iterati were on their way out. Miguel had some substance issues. It wasn't good. I was kind of the intermediary trying to get Miguel go to Bodog. And Miguel, I remember Miguel calls me up and he goes, "Hey, dude, we're going to induce labor in order to have our child early so I can like get on that Bodog contract."
Yeah.
So I call Iterati and I'm like, "Hey, dude, you're not really responding. Here's the situation." And Iterati came clean. He's like, "Dude, I'm having some substance issues. The entire staff has turned against me." He even said Jeff from Evansville. Come on, Jeff Osborne went in with
Jeff Osborne. Fuck yeah.
He went in there with like a whole thing saying Miguel Torres isn't that good. He's like, everyone's just trying to cut my legs off for me. And I said, "Well, here, I can't call Torres and give him, well, here's bad news. He's here, even more bad news. I'll see you at the next event, Miguel. Take care, buddy." I can't do that. I said, "Send me a Bodog contract." It was like 8-8, 10-10, 12-12, something like around there, or maybe a little bit higher. And I said, "Dude, you don't have to honor it, but Miguel at least has got to present this to the WEC because the money that they're offering was just like hot garbage."
Nothing, yeah.
It was hot garbage. So like Miguel like bluffed his way with a fake contract.
Yes, sir.
Just to get what he deserved, and it was less than you deserved.
It was less after taxes and paying all the shit you had to go through to get there. You're looking for the next fight right away. Yeah. Or you're gonna go pump gas. So Jeff Bedard, here's the thing though, it allowed you to fight like the elite class. Jeff Bedard was 9-0, September 5th, 2007. You came in with like this huge record where everyone's like, "Come on, dude, that's just a Midwest fucking Travis Fulton." Like that's some Midwest bullshit right there. Jeff Bedard, what happens? Triangle in like 2 minutes.
Okay. Dude, Ralph, when Joe Martinez says Miguel's name, I remember like I had to like, holy fuck, he made it. I had to like rewind it. Miguel Torres. Oh, one more time. Dude, Joe Martinez is the best.
Yeah. I'll never forget that. Still gets me chills in the spine.
Yeah. Chase Beebe, they take my other pick. You fight, or Chase Beebe actually beats Eddie Wineland.
Yeah.
And you fight Chase Beebe for the actual 135-pound world title. What was your mindset going into that?
To destroy this guy who was talking shit about me. So maybe he wasn't talking shit on camera, but in between like going to interviews and weigh-ins and press conferences, I had the feeling, the inkling that his instructors didn't like me very much. And whenever I would walk by, I could hear them like, I don't know, talk shit or whatever. And I found it a little disrespectful because I dedicated my life to the martial arts and I was not playing around, I earned my way to be there. And when I seen them talking like that, I got a little shitty. And my main mindset was make my dad proud, give him the world title, let him have the belt, and then destroy this fucking guy talking shit about me. And even when I was walking in, I could just, you could feel the energy in the room. You could smell the air in the room. And in their mind, there was no way it was going to happen. And in my mind, I knew like this guy was already done. He just didn't know it yet, And it was just a matter of just getting in there and doing it.
It's Gilbert Grappling. It's your second fighter from that gym, Chase Beebe, who multiple times state champion. He might have state 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Like incredibly decorated wrestler. He was 11-1, just beat Eddie Wineland. Guillotine, 3 minutes, 59 seconds.
he beat Eddie Wineland after he destroyed his ear. I was in the corner of that fight too. Eddie's ear was filled with like blood, and he mounted Eddie, and he went for an elbow, and Eddie turns his head sideways, and he hits him in the ear, and the ear pops, and blood squirts like 8 feet across the ring. It squirt like on the judges with the scorecards. It squirts on the scorecards. That's how far it squirted across the ring. Crazy fight. After that fight, Eddie didn't respond to the WEC or myself. Like, he went home and he was a recluse for like about 6 months to a year. And WEC kept hitting me up to try to contact him, but he wouldn't respond to me. And then they're like, well, we're looking for somebody, do you want to, take a shot? And I'm like, oh, sure. So that's how that started.
It's good shit, dude. And, is it really officially a world title until you get your international defense? Dude, you fight Yishiro Maesa, 23-4-2 out of pancreas. Dude, 23-4-2 out of pancreas. Like, if you're a 500 fighter out of pancreas, you're a bad motherfucker. Like, legit one of the top 10 in the world. This guy, they were saying, was number one in the world.
That was one of the fights that put me on the map. I was like reaching my peak, my prime. I was at my prime at that time. And it was a Japanese samurai versus an Aztec warrior. I had a bunch of fans there. We're fighting at the Sacramento Kings Center or whatever the name of the place was. And I had a sponsor. They owned Zappos, and they started a skateboard company. And the owner of that company, his name was Nick. He made like 5,000 of these towels that had Torres on it with his logo. It was called Stagger for Stay Aggressive. And he passed them all out to the people who were, like, when you walk out, people have their phones out or a lighter. Well, he gave them all these white towels to flip around in the air. So I'm behind this big curtain. The curtain pulls back, there's smoke. You walk through the smoke, and there was just flashes and towels, and just every seat it was like sold out arena. And it didn't scare me. It just kind of like made me reassured, like, this is where you're supposed to be, I walked in there, and I fell down. I threw a head kick, and remember the old school tap out shorts? They were long, like board shorts, but they didn't have slits. In the beginning, they had no slits. So if you pick up your leg too high to throw a head kick, your top leg pulls your bottom leg from under you, and you fall down. I didn't know this. I found it out when I wore those shorts because they sponsored me for that fight. So I throw a head kick, I fall down, I miss, and he throws a glancing blow and cuts me right in the middle of my eyes. And I had just watched Dodgeball, and I felt a trickle of blood come down my nose from my middle of my eyes, and I just heard Ben Stiller's voice. Nobody makes you bleed my own blood. And I just got up like a demon and I went ham for like about 15 minutes nonstop. And broke his on that fight.
He was 23-4-2 out of the pancreas organization. Doctor stoppage, third round. Bro, like, and I remember, like, the one cool thing about watching Miguel fight is, one, you got about a 90% finish rate, maybe even higher, like mid-90s at this point, and you were guaranteed to bleed. Like, you for sure were gonna fucking bleed at some point or another.
A lot of scar tissue. I think I had over 30 fights at that time already. That's a lot of, 30. Not including all the fights in the gyms and all the fights and wherever else I was fighting. You get some scar tissue built up.
Yeah, you were 31-1 going in there. So, I mean, you're well on your way. Manny Tapia, who's 10-0-1, one of Larry Landless' students. That was a main event. Dude, you went from the Hammond Civic Center to main eventing in Las Vegas, WEC 37. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that was because of you guys, man. You guys are the ones throwing the shows. Yeah. You guys are the ones that gave me the pulpit to be able to do my thing.
You knock out Manny Tapia myself. Round 2, you knock out Manny Tapia. Dude, Manny Tapia had a big reputation.
Yeah, he talked a lot of shit too.
I got to.
We were doing press conferences in Mexico, and I speak decent Spanish for America. In Mexico, I speak American Spanish. He spoke no Spanish. So everybody was talking to me, and I'm talking in Spanish, and he cannot understand what I'm saying. And I'm being nice. And I could hear him speaking English. I'm gonna fuck him up, and I'm gonna beat his ass and all this shit. And I'm like, well, okay, all right. Like I just knew already I was gonna destroy him. But I could hear him talking shit, so he's kind of like gave me fuel for the fire.
At this point, Dana White, they were like desperate for like a Mexican voice, like a real Mexican voice.
That was the first one.
Dude, you were the first real Mexican, and like you listen to Spanish music, you spoke Spanish, you say American Spanish. I speak American Spanish. You speak like, to me, you're speaking like ghetto Spanish, dude.
I don't have the dialect of the slang words that are current, Like in Mexico, the slang words are like, how people say like Riz or sus or stuff like that. They would have words like that. And then when I would speak, I would use like traditional words. And they're looking like I was an old person, Yeah. They could tell.
Yeah, grammar school. I went to grammar school right then. Yeah,
I went to school player.
Yeah. After Tapia, you return home to the UIC pavilion. Takaya Mizugaki, another Japan standout. This guy's another top 3 in the world guy. He's 11-2-2. Dude, you had Kurt Pelligrino in your corner.
Yeah.
How does that relationship start?
I went to one of Kurt's fights. I was doing an autograph signing at a UFC event, and he fought. Who did he fight?
He was in line for an autograph?
He fought Nate Diaz. No, he fought Nate Diaz. And he did extremely well against Diaz. And then in the 3rd round, he got caught with a triangle. He got caught in a submission. And he was really pissed. And we were all going home together in the same, to the hotel together in the same ride. And there was no space for me. So I sat in the back of the hatchback. I sat like in the trunk area with the bags.
The champion.
And I was like rubbing his shoulders, telling him he did it, I thought he did an amazing job. I thought he could have beat Nate, but he just got overzealous and tired in the 3rd round and got stuck. And then after that, I had invited him to come down to the gym to train. He came down and trained for a week. I went down to his gym and trained for a week. And then he ended up helping me. I helped him with the camp. He helped me with the camp. And then we just became really good friends. I'm still really good friends with Kurt.
Yeah, very talented guy. Very talented. Another multiple time state champion wrestler. From
Point
that East
Pleasant,
Coast.
baby. Point Pleasant, New Jersey. We got some good stories.
After this time, Frank Mir declares Miguel Torres is pound for pound the best fighter in the world. And you take a ranking, top 3 ranking, like unanimous top 3 ranking across the board. How surreal was that?
It was amazing. I mean, I worked my whole life to get respect and to be seen and viewed and spoken about in such high regards. Just made all the hard work and dedication that I put in, like it made it worth it. It would have been nice to have a paycheck to take care of myself and my family with that, but
it's true.
Or belts that were worth money, because in these days WC, you win your title and they gave you a belt on TV, and then when you go in the back, they take it back from you. So WC just gave me 1 belt, and the other 4 fights that I won, they gave me a belt, but they took it back in the backstage. So getting that recognition meant a lot, lacking everything else. So for me, it was just like accumulation of putting in all my heart, soul, and my life into it, and receiving finally, being recognized for something that I did.
Brian Bowles, 7-0 out of Hardcore Gym. That was a hard fight for me to watch as a fan.
That was hard for me too, bro.
Yeah. Was it a big crash for you?
Well, it was a hard fight because I fought Mizugaki. I think it was in April, end of April. And then
August, Brian Bowles. Yeah.
As soon as that fight happened, I went to my after party. I got there it was fucked up because I should have went to the hospital. They were trying to drug test me after the fight. So I have 2 guys with jackets in the commission in my locker room. I'm getting glued shut. I'm not getting stitches. I had a cut on my eye. They're gluing me shut. I have my penis in a cup. My dick is in a cup. I'm in the shower wetting half my body, trying to rinse the blood off. And like, you know how when you wet your hand, you got to pee? I was dehydrated. I couldn't pee. I just fought 25 minutes in a world-class fight. And someone's got Gatorade in my mouth, trying to give me water and Gatorade. I'm trying to wet my hand so I can pee in the cup. I got 2 guys staring at me. I got a guy gluing my eyes shut. They're rushing me to go do an interview. And after like 5-6 minutes, I finally get to pee a little bit. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I pee, and I peed pure blood from the body shots that I took, you know? And I was like, oh shit, is that enough pee? It was like under the line. And the guy looked at me and he goes, yeah, you'll be all right, champ. And he just closes it up and leaves. After that, I went to the after party like 2 or 3 hours late. I was there for like 40 minutes. Go back to the hotel, and then UFC's like, you going to Mexico. Went to Mexico for a week right after that fight. Did a bunch of PR. Didn't get to spend time with my family. Didn't get to see my daughter. Didn't get to go back to my gym. Didn't get to recuperate myself. My eye was swollen shut from the cut that I had. When you go on the airplane right away, because the elevation, you know what I'm saying? So my eye was swollen shut. I'm doing all these interviews and stuff, and I got these aviator shades on. So you can't see my face. Plus, they're putting makeup because you're on TV to cover up all the blemishes on your face, because I had a bunch of scratches. And I think it was like the 3rd day I was on Fox, and they were going to do like a 2-minute segment on my fight. And there was 3 guys and a chick that were interviewing me. And the guys before the interview were kind of like talking shit about me, like, who does this guy think he is wearing sunglasses? And who does this guy, you know? And so in the middle of the interview, they asked me about the sunglasses. So why are you wearing sunglasses? And I was like, because in those days, they would lie, because the fights were on Wednesdays or on Sundays. And then they would promote them on Saturday.
As if they were live. Dude, people would clean up on a betting with the people that were taking odds. Yes. Go ahead.
It was a lie.
Yep.
All right. And they would say, like, when I fought Tapia, it was easy to go to Mexico after the fight and say, yeah, on Saturday I'm fighting Tapia, watch me fight live, and da-da-da-da. And the fight already happened like on a Sunday, the day before it happened already, because I didn't have any blemishes and I was healthy. It was okay. So I take my sunglasses off, and they can see my eyes swollen shut. The other guys got, like, because when your eyes swell shut, the blood travels to the other side. This side was all colored in. And I told them what happened. You know, I had this crazy war with the Japanese guy. You know, the fight's going to be on Saturday. Watch it. And from that 2-minute segment, they had me the whole show talking about my career and my training and all this stuff. I was the first Mexican person that brought MMA to Mexico that made it something. Cain Velasquez, they didn't do it. It was me. You know, most people will never know that, because they'll never give me the accolades for it. But I was the one that did it, because I was the one that was there, and I have the receipts. You know, I have all my old plane tickets. I have all my old emails. I have all my old, you know, contact information. I was the one that did all those things, you know.
Yeah. Well, Mizugaki, you were up on the scorecards, and like, we're going back a little bit. You were up on the scorecards, and you, 3rd round, you go, man, fuck this. I'm getting this finish. Like, no, that's not how it's like, you're not coming to my city and not getting finished, bro.
Yeah.
And like, you guys ended with like a double heel hook. You guys were heel hook.
That was against Maeda. That was the Maeda fight.
Oh, that was the Maeda. Oh,
that was the Maeda fight. We had double toe holds. And that wasn't the first time. That was the 3rd fight I've been in where I had double toe holds. When I fought Richard Danku, that same situation happened. But you know me, Mike, I'm not going to tap to a toe hold. You know, you're going to tear my knee. I'm getting paid for the surgery afterwards.
Yeah.
It's a workman's thing. You know,
Yeah. You know, and Brian Bowles, that sucked. Yeah,
it sucked, but everything happens for a reason. It made me realize that I was human, and that, you know, I could bounce back. I bounced back from that, and then ended up fighting Benavidez. But I tore my bursa in the beginning of that training camp, because I had AJ Agazarm come down and help me train. And this is just a guy that's a wrestler, just like Jiu Jitsu, but he was a hothead. Like, he's a hothead now. He has issues now. He's one of the most hated guys in jiu-jitsu. I started with that guy. And he knee taps me off the mat onto the concrete. And when I fell on the ground, my elbow hit the floor. Got bursitis, got it drained. I was training in Vegas at Drysdale. Mark Delagrade was going to come do pads for me. And one of my sponsors from Bad Boy, Robin Offner, gave me a house in Vegas that he had to use to be close to the gym, gave me a car, he helped me out. And I think it was like the second week I was getting my elbow drained every day. Every day I had like a big ass ball, like a grapefruit under my elbow. Doctor would drain it, one of those big horse syringes. He drained it out, and every day he'd tell me, if you keep doing this, you might get a staph infection. You got to be careful. And when you're young, I don't give a shit, bro. Like, I'll be all right. Well, I ended up getting a staph infection. My whole arm from my fingers to my shoulder was swollen. Couldn't hit pads, couldn't wrestle. I could run, lift weights, jump rope, do calisthenics, but I couldn't touch anything. Left Vegas, came back home. Training at home was dry because I couldn't do anything. I wasn't motivated. I was depressed. To the UFC, Dana White would not let me back out of the fight. I think they had just bought WEC, and they wanted me to fight. They wanted me to beat them Benavidez so I could fight Dominic Cruz. And I kept telling Dana, because I was doing all this PR in Ohio, because I go to the Arnolds and I go to Ohio a lot, You're a Midwest guy. We need you on this card. Nobody here knows Cruz or Bowles. You're Mexican. We need you to do this. We need you to. And I would show them. I would take off my shirt in restaurants and show them, like, look, dude, I can't even bend my arm, And they convinced me to stay in the fight. And then that was one of the worst experiences of my life because I didn't really do anything physically to prepare for the fight besides running and calisthenics and weights. I didn't get to hit pads or spar or do any of this shit because my arm was so messed up. Fight the guy. I'm still on my third run of antibiotics because the staph infection was so bad. And when you're on antibiotics, it kills all the flora in your gut. So it gives you diarrhea and it makes you tired. Gone. You bleed more. I get cut from my forehead down to my nose. And I want to say, like, the doctor at the emergency room gave me like 15 stitches. Like, they put, like, everybody that came into the ring to see my forehead made this look like, oh, shit. Like, they looked like two other people, like, oh, man, I see my forehead on the big screen. And there was a glob of Vaseline. And there's like a big gaping hole in the middle. I go in the back in the locker room, right? And I had to walk past everybody with that. I couldn't just cover my forehead, And I go back there and I look in the mirror and I could see my skull. Like I could literally see the skull. And I have my gloves on still. I'm covered in blood from head to toe in blood. My own blood, by the way, not his blood. And I start touching my skull. And the doctor comes back there and he goes, hey, I wouldn't touch that if I were you, bro. You don't want to get a staph infection on your fucking forehead, And I was like, dude, that's my fucking skull. And I go back. I think I got 15 stitches. The doctor that I had was like an intern doctor or whatever. And that was a fucked up experience, man. That was like the beginning of where everything started going wishy-washy for me.
Damn. Ralph.
Miguel, didn't you get it fixed later on though? You had to go to New York to get plastic surgery and got like 300 stitches, right?
I got plastic surgery. I went to New York. No, I went to, I think I was in New York, but I had the surgery in New Jersey. And I have the video posted on YouTube where the guy did the surgery. He let me record the surgery. And I have a video of it's like, I think like a 10-minute video of the whole process. They couldn't put me to sleep. He gave me local anesthetic.
No.
In the video, he like cuts around the scar, but he had to go bone deep. So there's like the skin, you got the dermis, the epidermis, you got the fascia, and you got the muscle. So we had to cut through everything. And there was 4 layers of stitches in my forehead. A year after the surgery, I would get like a random pimple in my head and I would pop it and a stitch would come out. That's how long those fucking stitches lasted in there, It was nuts, dude. Great doctor. Took care of me extremely well. Pretty much gave me a facelift in my forehead. So I appreciate him very much. But that experience kind of messed me up because That was the first time I lost 2 times in a row. There were big fights on TV. I would get people sending me messages. Like when I hear Ronda Rousey, oh, I lost a fight and I wanted to kill myself. I was like, fuck off, man. Like your first time on the rodeo for your first time having a beer. People were sending messages, fuck you, Torres. I bet $100 on you and I lost. And I'm looking at the screen like, dude, are you serious? You lost $100? I lost like fucking $50,000 in that fight, And just the comments that I would hear after I lost that second fight. And that was when I started going to train when Montreal with Frost. And again, the worst things in your life put the most pressure on you and make you search to attain the next best thing. And for me, that was that,
Well, let me rewind just a little bit. Did it surprise you that Brian Bowles couldn't pass a drug test shortly after this?
Oh, no, I knew he was on steroids. The first time we were going to fight, when I fought Mizugaki in Chicago, that was supposed to be Bowles. But Bowles wouldn't pass a drug test. So they made him sit back and they got in Mizugaki. So I knew he was on steroids already. And people were offering me steroids all the time. But I was so Mexican and so ghetto and stoic that I didn't want to have that in my system and then get caught, or people say, oh, well, look, all he wanted is fights because he was on steroids or whatever. Yeah. And thinking back now, seeing how shit's going, watching Conor McGregor and fucking John Jones, I'm like, I should have did steroids. But at those days, I pissed for so many fighters. In those days, I was at every WC and UFC event. Every weekend I was traveling. And I pissed for 4 or 5 guys every event. Yeah. Because my piss was clean.
Miguel, you know what? Like people always bring up, and I always drop your name here. People always bring up, well, BJ Penn, he fought clean, and he did. Like he was, one of the first champions that were steroid free. But I always say, what about Miguel Torres? First world champion. You never popped hot. You didn't have the steroid body.
Everybody forgets about the little guys, man.
Yeah.
Like the way the wave that I started in WEC with Uriah Faber ushered in the 135 and 45 in UFC, the 125s. It ushered in the female divisions. Like we were so popular in what we did. Uriah, because of his chin and his hair and his nose, California boy, brought in that demographic. I was a dirty Mexican, loves tacos and women, brought in that demographic. It was like the best of both worlds to like sell lightweight classes to the masses, and that ushered in everything.
You guys finished. Everybody had finishes. Like you guys, you guys were doing it.
We had a smaller cage too, though. Easier to finish in a smaller cage. You don't get to run around too much.
Were you ever offered KID Yamamoto?
Yes, I was offered KID Yamamoto before I got to WEC. I think Shiro hit me up when Bulldog was hitting me up, and they offered me a contract. They sent me a contract. I think it was like for 200 and 200. And if I win the belt, I own the title, but the belt stays in Japan. And I get to bring one corner man, and they were gonna fly me in like a day before the fight. And I'm like, dude, 200 and 200. I'm like, I make more than that taking a shit. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, I'm not gonna fly to Japan to fight a guy that's a world champion for $400 if I win. Just get out of here, man. And then I think it was, did he come in the WC? It was in between the mergers.
He came in at the UFC, and he was shot.
He came in
shot at that point.
They brought him in, and I think it was either him or Benuelos, and my manager picked Benuelos. And then that was right after I had fought Charlie Valencia. Yeah. And they got Benuelos in there. And then after that, I think Yamamoto lost his fight, and then it just never materialized after that.
Yeah, with KID Yamamoto, at this point, he was like a TV star, and he was a established like media person in Japan. He was making $75,000 to $100,000 a fight, and they're offering you $400 if you win, and the belt stays there.
Yeah,
I remember when all this went down. You said, "I tell you what, I'll give him $2,000, 2 cornermen, but he's got to fight me at the Hammond Civic
Yeah.
Center.
Come find him. Yes, sir. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you 10x what you guys were offering me. Oh no, you know.
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah.
What about Ivan Menjivar?
I think they offered me Ivan back when I was fighting in Hammond still, but Ivan fought from 130 to like 180 or something like that.
He
Like
may have been too heavy. Yeah, he may have been
his
too
weight
heavy.
range was so crazy, and I think he had fought St. P. Like I looked up his fights, and he had fought guys that were like 180 guys, 170 guys, and he was fighting guys that went. I was like, dude, like I could not understand how a guy that short could make both weight class or all those weight classes. And then to make this even funnier, forward this like 6 years, 7 years after, I'm training with them, and we become friends, you know. And he would like Ivan would tell me stories, you know, when he fought St. Pierre, you know, and how he fought in the old days. He was just a crazy El Salvadorian doing his thing, man.
He didn't speak any French whatsoever. Dude, we had him on the podcast.
He speaks a little French. He speaks a little French now, but
when he first moved
days,
there,
probably not.
Yeah, he fought a lot. And dude, like I'm like, wait a minute, you're from El Salvador, you live in Canada, and you got a phenomenal takedown. Like that doesn't make sense.
He was a beast.
Like,
his head and arm throw, like this guy would throw me. It was not even like wrestling; it was more judo. You know,
okay.
he would throw me, and I would be in midair, thinking to myself, "Fuck this guy, man!" Like this guy was phenomenal with his throws. Takedowns are good too, but he probably got that from wrestling and TriStar. But his judo was phenomenal.
Wow. What was your experience like with Scott Adams and Reed Harris at WEC?
I always got along with Scott and Reed. I got a little upset when I got fired, and then I got fired again because I would have thought they would have stood up for me a little bit more. When I got fired the second time, I had a job with ESPN doing commentating on MMA Live with John Anik, Rashad Evans, Stephan Bonnar, Chael Sonnen. They had, you know, different guys on the show. Kenny Florian. And it was a big thing for me because it was a steady paycheck every month. You know, you do 45 minutes, you make $5,000. That's a good paycheck to get to bring home on top of everything else, you know. And when they fired me the second time, I lost my contract with them. And when I lost that contract, that was when UFC was switching over to Fox, and MMA Live was still a thing, but they were going to get taken over by Fox. So that job that I had for like $5,000 a show ended up being like $1 million a year career.
Oh,
you know? So that kind of like, I don't want to say I was mad. I would say more I was like upset, you know. My butt hurt a little bit because I opened the door to be in this situation that I was in. And whenever, that's why I don't watch fights anymore. I would watch the fights and I would see John Anik, and I think they picked up Dominic Cruz, and they would have all these other guys on there that were after me in that spot. And I would get a little, you know, just mad because that should have been me. You know?
Or even in Spanish. Yes, they're on the Spanish side.
Well, the Spanish side too, yeah, but because I lost that contract with them, with the UFC, that was tied in with everything else.
Here's the thing. I mean, are you open to talk about it?
Yeah, talk about whatever you want.
All right. So on December 9, 2011, Dana White's on a Michael Landsberg show in Canada. And there had been some issues with some previous tweets from Forrest Griffin. He tweeted, "Rape is the new missionary." He gets in a lot of trouble. Dana White goes nuts because it's kind of hurting the brand. Rashad Evans writes, "I'm going to put my hands on you worse than the guy did to those kids at Penn State." They go nuts. You write, do you remember your tweets? I remember it.
If a rape van was called a surprise van, more people wouldn't mind going for rides in them.
Everybody likes surprises.
Everybody likes surprises?
Yeah, that was it. So now the caveat is you lifted that because he went crazy, made an example of you.
He fired me. I was the first MMA fighter, they get canceled on Twitter. They get canceled on social media. I got fired, not by email, not by phone call, not by being flown out for a meeting. I got fired. I was training in the fucking gym in like my 15th round, and buddies were coming to the gym like screaming at me to get out of the cage, and I'm like, I'll be done in 10 minutes. I get out of the cage and like, dude, check your phone. Your manager's trying to blow you up. I had like 150 missed phone calls. I had emails, texts from all these different people, lawyers who I didn't know to sue the UFC and all this shit. And I opened up my phone and I got fired via Twitter. That was the most disrespectful and humiliating thing I experienced in my whole life to that point.
And dude, here's the thing. Miguel's response is, okay, because he's worried about Fox. It's Fox. It's Fox. He kept kind of reiterating that or repeating that. And Miguel's response is at the time, that's not my joke. I took it from the 70s show on Fox about an hour and a half prior to me posting it.
Yeah. Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
They're only Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah. So
Always
you're just
Sunny in
like,
Philadelphia.
your big concern is Fox. Okay, well, dude, I lifted it from Fox.
Yeah.
That's not my joke.
Yeah.
Like, and now what?
I was a scapegoat, man. I was a scapegoat. You know, they had Forrest Griffin, they had Rashad Evans doing things like that worse than I did. And those two guys are Ultimate Fighter champions. So you got to fire one of three guys. One guy who paved his way to be there, and the other guys you help make to become who they are. You're not going to fire the guys you made to be there, you know, who are 205 pounders. So I was a scapegoat for that. Now, you can say whatever you want in the UFC, and they're just fighters. That's how fighters talk. Now it's okay, you know. He can call female reporters Loretta Hunt the C word and all these fucking things, and that's okay. But I make a quip from something I watched on Fox, and now I get fired, and my whole reputation is sullied. I call bullshit on that, man.
Well, here, Rampage Jackson, I like Rampage. He gets into a car accident where a pregnant woman loses her child. And this is like, he had like 2 or 3 incidents over like a 10-day period. He was doing a water fast. Like somebody actually died, like actually died. Nothing. Cover it up, get the PR crew. You got John Jones doing really weird shit with homeless people. Like you watch that video, he's in really tight pants and shooting guns and using drugs. It's like, I know what I think when I see it. I know MMA Guru made a video of it. I really agree with what he has to say. But you know, it goes, you know, it's neither here nor there. How do you get back into the UFC?
My manager hit me up that night and told me that he talked to Dana already, that they would get me back in, but I had to do anger management. I had to do
and I would argue, okay, but my next fight, I might not be as good if this class really works. Like I'm really worried about this.
So I had to donate like 10 grand to 10 different charities all in one day around Chicago.
It's like,
and mind you, when I had to donate my own money, 10 grand. So I $1,000 to each charity.
Okay.
And then I would go to these, they weren't charities. They were like centers for people who were raped. Rape clinics or whatever they call them, like shelters or whatever they are. And I'd meet like these 3 or 4 business people who were there that they run the council. And then they'd had me sign this non-disclosure agreement saying that they're accepting my money, but they're not accepting my apology. Then they had me meet like actual rape victims and hear their stories. And then I had to drive to somewhere else. And then had to drive somewhere else. This happened from like
fucking God.
From like 8 in the morning till like 9 at night. You know, it's probably one of the worst days of my life because I literally felt like a piece of shit. You know, I grew up with Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, all these like comedians that made fun of everything. And I'm not saying I'm a comedian, but I'm not a lame. You know, I'm a kind of funny guy every now and then. And I made an observation of a show I was watching. And up until this point, before I got fired, the UFC would give me their actual account for Twitter, and they would tell me I could post whatever I wanted because I was so quick with wit.
Dude,
And they would
your
literally give me
Twitter
for 3
was
days,
phenomenal.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I could post whatever pictures, whatever comments, comment the fights, talk about everything, and it was okay. And then, that was just how I was, and then finally I made a comment that Dana didn't like. That was
surprise van. The
The
surprise van.
van. I drive one, actually. I have a nice surprise
How dare
van.
you? How dare
I do.
you?
I have to. I even have a chain. I got a gold chain with a whistle at the end of it. That's right.
So you give up 10 grand, you get back into the UFC. Did you and Dana actually kind of hash things out, or was it because it seemed like
No, he called me into his office and gave me some bullshit speech on why he did what he did and how I gotta be. But everybody else was out doing whatever the fuck they wanted to and saying whatever they wanted to. So I didn't think it was kind of fair how I was being treated or demonized like I was a scumbag, And there was guys doing way worse than me. Like, I'm like, dude, I pissed for half your guys in the show. Because Dean had, I think, 4 or 5 guys on the card were Dean's guys. And because I was with Dean, those are the guys that I would piss for.
And that's it. That's that grade A Wagyu from Japan piss.
That's fucking right. From Mexico. From Mexico.
I'm sorry, man. I mean, I'm just talking steak, bro. I'm talking A5 steak.
That's Tijuana grade P for you, huh?
That's that Rio Grande shit.
maybe a couple of taints in there from other things, but
man,
you're gonna pass the drug test.
Yeah, it turns out you got chlamydia. Yeah.
Hey, not me. The other guys do. Not me. The other guys.
So you lose to Michael McDonald, who today, Michael McDonald, I might add, he's only 33 years old, and he's on a 2-fight win streak, and the guy hasn't fought in a decade. He could have been the future. I think I got a phone number on him. I'm going to try to track him down. You get fired after that, and that was kind of surprising.
He was on steroids too, man. When we weighed in, you could even see it. There's video when we weighed in still. I'm behind him. He's standing in front of me. As he takes off his shirt and he walks to the scale, he had Brian Ball's back acne. He had back acne like a Canadian hockey player, like this dude. Never, I've seen him fight a couple of times, never seen that before. This dude had like puberty acne on his back. And I think TriStar had like 3 or 4 guys on the card. He was cornering, I think, Rory McDonald or McDessie.
Yes, McDonald.
And I was fighting after. I was going to be the first fight of the night, then the main fight on Facebook, then the main fight on ESPN or Fox, whatever they were going to show the next fights on. Then they put me the first fight on the main card on pay-per-view. Then I got bumped up to be the fight before the main events. And as Faraz is back there with cornering McDessie or Rory, I'm with Faraz's brother Eamon and my boy Tom. And we're just moving around, getting warmed up. The game plan was use your jab, stay away. McDonald's, he only finishes in the first round. After the first round, he tucks himself out, and he's not a big finisher after the first round. So first round, stay away, kick him in the leg, box him up on the outside. And then I think it was Dana White and Joe Silva come in the back. Or was it one of the Fertitas? It was 2 of the guys. 2 of them. One of those 2. 3.
That's a move Joe Silva does, by the way.
They go in there, and he starts pointing at me like, this is your time. You better go out there and fight like a fucking warrior. Because Faraz had me fight smart. He didn't want me to go out there and be crazy. He wanted me to go out there and be like St. Pierre. Be smart, take care of yourself, move around, win the fight. You don't got to win the war. When they came back there and told me that, I was up in like another fight. And they were like, if you don't win this fight like a Mexican warrior that you are, you're not getting a title shot. he bumped you all the way up before the main event, so you can go out there and show them what you can do, and win back your fans and da 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 da. Like they basically talk shit to me and threatened me that if I didn't go out there and let it all hang out and sling some fucking rockets, that I wasn't gonna get my title shot. And that's all I wanted to get back was to reclaim what I already had. And the night before, after the night of the weigh-ins, you know how sometimes you take your mouthpiece off and you put it in between your shorts and your underwear? Yeah. Well, I was cutting weight, put my mouthpiece there, throw my clothes in the laundry bag. The mouthpiece gets washed, gets dried. So it ended up getting like wider. It wasn't like tight to my mouth. So if you watch that fight, it came out 2 times. The first time it came out, they put it back in. The second time it came out, I waved it off and I wanted to keep going in there. And I got hit with an uppercut, no mouthpiece.
Oh.
I can't tell you what happened after I got hit because I don't remember. I think I was out for like 2 minutes. And then when I woke up, I still wasn't back for like another 15, 20. I thought I won the fight. I was walking out of the cage like, how did I win the fight? How did I get him? And they're like, bro, don't talk. Just be quiet. It was a fucked up. And then they get fired after that. It was kind of fucked up.
How does that take place? How do you get fired? I mean, is there a phone call?
My manager told me. Dean told me. Dean hit me up like on a random Wednesday after the fight, and I got cut.
Man. How was your experience with Dean Albrecht?
I mean, I thought Dean took care of me. I thought he was like looking out for my best interests. And he had maybe like 20, 30 fighters that were like high-name guys, high-level guys. And he had companies like Hayabusa or whatever brands that would give him like $100,000 and say, you have all these guys fighting on this card. You divvy it up how you see fit or whatever. And he was a big scammer in the end. He was running a big Ponzi scheme. And no one told me shit about it because all the fighters that caught him getting ripped off didn't say, hey, Miguel, be careful with Dean. He fucking stole some money from me or he's doing a Ponzi scheme. So it wasn't until I was going to TriStar. I'm on the way to TriStar with my boy Bobby Joe. We're driving there. And I was going to stay there for 2 months for a training camp. And I was going to stay with Rory McDonald. But Dean wouldn't answer my phone calls. And we're like 10 hours in, and I have nowhere to stay. I have me and my boy. I have my Charger, the Red Dragon. We're looking to fucking, go train over here, and we have nowhere to stay. So I get there, and I got a hold of Rory, and Rory told me that he wasn't paid his last dues from Dean, so he couldn't get his apartment in Montreal. So he wasn't even in Montreal yet. And I'm on the way. I'm already in Montreal. And we ended up renting like a hotel. And every hotel we went to was booked. We got there like on a Friday. And the hotel I ended up finding that had one room with one bed. It was like $450 a night. And Faraz hits me up, making sure we got there okay, told him my situation. And then Faraz ended up telling me that Dean cheated all these guys and was taking, keeping their money and shit. And that Rory didn't have this place because Dean ripped them off. And then I found out I was being ripped off. And then from there, like, pandemonium happened. So I had a lot of issues. I didn't have a ton of money. And I was living in Montreal now. And I had spending a lot of money on a hotel. So Frost invited me to stay at his house. So he took in me and Bobby Joe. And we stayed in his basement for those 2 months. And that was the beginning of my relationship with Frost, who I miss very much, by the way.
Wow. I tell you, there's a couple things. I mean, dude, there's a lot going on.
It's a book, man. It's a movie, bro. There's a lot of shit going on.
Here, and let me just give little tidbits here. Pre-Ultimate Fighter, Ryan Hall is in your gym.
Yeah.
You got him his fight.
Wizard.
Yeah,
you got him. He's a wizard.
How was he to roll with?
It was like wrestling with Yoda, of ankle locks and heel hooks. His stand-up was decent. Wrestling was so-so, but once you hit the ground, your heel was gonna be fucking shredded. It was garbage. his inverted game and his 50-50 guard. I mean, he's one of the best guys I ever trained with, as jiu-jitsu wise. He even fought in Hammond one time and came out and stayed with me for a while. Your show.
So so I got him his fight because he needed one more win to get on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. Things people forget about, you know. Things people forget about.
Neil Magny.
One of my old students, yeah.
You brought me Neil Magny, and in essence, Jay Valco says, you know, obviously you know him. Hey, I got this huge ticket seller, works at the stock exchange, big money guy. He just wants to do one fight, get in and out. You know, he wants to put it on his record. Just give me somebody that's going to push him but not beat him. I make the mistake of saying, hey, Miguel, do you have anybody green in your gym? And Miguel's green is much different than everybody. And like, but he's not lying to you when he says this guy's green, but it's green for Miguel, not like anybody else in the entire world. And dude, Neil Magny gets beat up the first round, but you can tell like he pops right back up, and you're like, oh fuck, this guy's got a gas tank.
Yeah.
Dude, the insurance claim that this guy had to file after the fight, oh my fucking God. Like I couldn't even talk to Jay Valco. Like it was very quick sentences. I couldn't apologize. Like there was just no mending that bridge after.
Jay should have known better, man. Jay should have known better.
It was just like, oh man. Well, there goes that relationship. It was kind of one of those things. And it was not my fault. I swear to God, it was not my fault. I trusted Torres. Neil Magny, another guy that you fought. Remember Jim Theobold back in the day?
Yeah. I seen Jim at a tournament in some random place. And I looked at his son was wrestling. His son was grappling. And I seen this fucking giant white dude. And I stared at him. And then I walked away and I turned back and I stopped and I looked again. And he looked like Jim Theobold. And I said, you look like an old friend of mine. Is your name Jim? And he just nods his head up and down. I'm like, what, dude? I got a picture of him and everything. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. I ran into him at a tournament. Amazing, man.
You're talking about a heavyweight that's got 30 wins and under 10 losses. I think under 5 losses, win over Homer Moore. Never made it to the UFC because he got hired by the fire department. And they said no.
Yeah. Good guy, still out there doing his thing, man.
Let's close with this. Ray Flores.
I'm proud of Ray for everything he's accomplished. I knew Ray when he was in high school. And I said in the past, I had a lot of Serbian friends. And one of my boys' cousins, Dusan, had this kid that he was in school with. They were doing a project. And they had to interview somebody that had their own business or that was doing something. And I knew Dusan. We played Magic the Gathering together. And he asked me if I would do it. I brought them into a hospital that I was working at in East Chicago. And I put him in a doctor's office. It was Sunday, so he wasn't there. So we set up the camera and the tripod and everything. And I was his first interview. And then he got access to all the backstage UFC, WEC, whatever events it was. And from there, he started doing his announcing. His dad was my Spanish teacher, Mr. Flores, when I was in middle school. And he was the first teacher I had to make me do an actual speech, but it was in Spanish. And this is a guy who speaks perfect Spanish, and I speak ghetto Spanish. So I had to clean up my shit, you know. And it helped me a ton because it gave me the confidence to be able to talk to people and know I was doing the right way. And to be able to help his son achieve what he's doing now, you know. Like I have friends that I watch fights and they'll be like, dude, that guy's from East Chicago, Ray Flores. I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. They look at me like, no, you don't know Ray Flores. I'm like,
you gave him a start. You gave him a start. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing to see him doing so well.
So just so people can kind of quantify this, imagine a shoulder-to-shoulder Hammond Civic Center, 6,000 people in a 5,000-seat venue, and you got this dorky eighth, I'd say dorky junior in high school that looks much younger than his actual age, in a full piece suit buttoned up to the top with a shirt and tie. And he's so stiff, like he's so stiff. And he's like announcing for like the local like cable access, I think it was. Bro, the thing is that as dorky as he was, as much as people made fun of him, like back in the beginning, it was real to him. And he did not allow anybody to deter him going, no. You can make fun of me. Okay.
Yeah.
And he kept at it and kept at it and never went away.
That's how I had my career, man. Same way. I was that dorky guy, that little dude that was a nerd. And
I think he borrowed that from you. Honestly, I think he learned that from you, dude. I'm not kidding. I always tell people that. I said he saw somebody in you and just like, you know what? That's what I need to do. You were his example.
Yeah. Well, his dad was my example, so everything comes full circle, huh?
Fucking crazy, dude. This is just okay, Kate. We started this talking about the independent grind. Miguel's journey in the independent grind is so much crazier and more entertaining than the WEC and the UFC stuff. Like it's fucking, dude, it's a multi-season Netflix series. That's what it is.
100%, man. 100%. I watch TV shows. I'm like, fuck, my story's better than this shit, you know? You gotta get a writer and a producer.
Right. Ralph García, why don't we tell people where they can meet Miguel Torres and how to get tickets?
I know, real quick. I know you're trying to close, but I know November 16th here in Tampa, the Florida Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame, we're going to induct Miguel Torres. We're also putting in Carlson Gracie Sr., his instructor, and we're going to come up with a special award off of that called the Carlson Gracie Lifetime Achievement Award. And we're going to pass that out once a year to one recipient because Carlson left such an impact on MMA and in the Jiu-Jitsu world that it's sad that he's not still around to see it and flourish in it like his cousins and his family are. But on that note, Carlson Jr. is going to be here. Miguel, you guys are cool, right? No.
Yeah, no, I'm cool with them.
Okay.
So
we haven't
Miguel,
spoken in a while, but I'm cool with everybody.
At one point, Miguel, you actually demoted yourself from black belt. Like you publicly in 2011, you demoted yourself. Was that just you being a hothead, you having a disagreement, or was it just?
I think I hurt my knee and I lost a fight. I got submitted for the first time and I was really pissed. So I had to re-earn it again.
Okay. So it was nothing personal again because
I was none personal,
okay.
None personal.
Okay.
Like nobody makes me bleed my own blood or tap. And if I tap, then I get it's almost worse than being knocked out, you know, because I consider myself a jiu-jitsu guy.
That's what's crazy. Like you're an actual jiu-jitsu guy. Like people who do jiu-jitsu, they don't transition well to the cage and vice versa. MMA guys don't transition really well, to the mat. It's a fact. You're actually a jiu-jitsu guy that's transitioned to the cage.
But I'm a ghetto jiu-jitsu guy and I'm Mexican, so I'm crazy. So that kind of makes up the in-between stuff, you know?
That's good shit. So, ladies and gentlemen, go to Tampa, go to the Hall of Fame ceremony. What's the date again, Ralph? November
16th. It's going to be right here in Tampa. If you can pull us up at the Florida Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame on Facebook.
And I'll tell you what, to get a picture in between Miguel Torres and Carlson Gracie Jr., holy fuck. That's what the fuck, So, Miguel, dude, you were the man and you still are the man, brother.
Thank you,
really greatly appreciate this, man.
I appreciate it very much, Mike. Thank you very much, huh?
I'm going to step by 100%. Abu Dhabi's coming soon. I'm going to be dropping off literature to you probably in the next couple weeks.
Sounds good, brother. I'll be up there.
Yep. Take care, man. Ralph,
Bye,
I owe you one.
Peace, Ralph.
Ralph García. We've obviously got a Hall of Fame career there. I mean, that's the very definition of what a Hall of Fame career is. There's ups, there's downs. But in terms of like a Netflix series or a multi-part series, he checks a lot of boxes there as well.
He's lived at least 3 to 4 lifetimes in his career, from the very beginning as a kid, not knowing nothing about MMA, to his long journey, being an old wise man with the perfect mullet.
So I'm at like a quite an advantage because I mean I saw Miguel's career from, I mean, arguably the beginning. The one thing that like I'm not sure came across here was like when Miguel was literally selling 4,000-5,000 seat venues out just with his name on a card. So when it came to like looking at somebody fighting at the next level or somebody that's actually doing it, everybody was like, I'm not going to say eggshells, that's not the right word, but everybody was like, hey man, hands off, leave that guy alone. He already understands the path and where he needs to go. But the reality of the situation was they didn't have a 135-pound division, and he was almost on the Ultimate Fighter for 155 pounds. So like we're looking at this guy like, oh, no, this is it. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And he on the other side is like, man, I'm in a corner of Bonnar. This is when I realized I was supposed to be there. So what he projected to us was much different than was kind of happening in his head at that time. Pretty interesting stuff, man.
Yeah. You know what's cool too about that time frame? I remember training with him. And my nephew was training with him. That's how I met him back in that time frame. And my nephew was always telling me about this guy. You know, he's Miguel Torres. He's 135 pounds, but we didn't know anybody under 155. And then I brought him down to do a seminar, and we all got to train with him and spar and roll. And I remember going up there and training for my last fight camp in 2009, and just watching him smash everybody. He beat up Bonnar. He beat up Eddie Weinman. He beat up Hornbuckle, you name it. Miguel had everybody's number. I thought this guy was never going to lose. Even when I would go live rounds with him in the cage, I would hit him with a good 3-piece. He'll fly back, and I was a 155 or 145er, and bloody nose, blow it out, come right back forward. Eventually, you start getting tired. So you're like, I'll take him down. But you take him down, he's beating you up on the ground too, and then you got to defend submissions. It was like there was no comfort zone where you could go with him and have a dominant position. He was always moving.
Dude, when they offered him like 200 and 200 to fight KID Yamamoto, you know, but and the belt had to stay there. He wasn't allowed to take the belt here. I remember he's like, okay, well, what about corners? No corners, or one corner. It was something ridiculous. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give him $8,000, you know, something way higher, but he's got to come here, and I'll give him 2 corners, but he's got to come here. And man, I really wish I would have saw that Yamamoto fight. I know Yamamoto had the wrestling and at the time to like pin Miguel, kind of like Ryan Ackerman did. And if you look at Yamamoto, he was really never submitted until the back end of his career. But nobody had submissions like Miguel. Nobody had a guard active like Miguel. That's one of those fights I would have liked to see in like IVC, 1 30-minute round. Never mind the judges.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy that you said that. Training with him, training with Carlson, Bernardo Santos, and Liborio, because they all come from that Carlson senior lineage. Their styles are all similar. The way they chain stuff together is like us chaining stuff together, like a jab, cross, left hook to the liver. That's how they do submissions. So he'll shoot up a triangle. From the triangle, he goes to the armbar, omoplata, back to the triangle. He might use that to sweep you, get on top, attack the guillotine, go for an anaconda. He can't get that, shoot the triangle back up. It's like you're always like defending. So you never have time to pass. And that's the Carlson Gracie style. That's why I think Carlson Sr.'s style was the best for MMA. The only other Gracie I would say was close enough is Hinzel, because Hinzel's guys he's produced is similar to MMA style too.
Yeah, that Carlson Gracie lineage, truly incredible. Like, I mean, Ralph, you're a true historian. Like, there's very few people that kind of like you go, oh, that guy's a legit historian. Like, you're still watching the old stuff just to kind of glean little gems from here and there. And I think that's why we get along so much.
Yeah, funny
No,
story that you said that. As Carl Malenko told me this years ago when we used to train, he goes, what's old is new, and what's new is old." But he
yeah,
said, "You train every day. You watch a fight today. You go back, and as long as you keep training different styles, you're learning, keep on adding to your toolbox. You go back and watch that same fight a few years later. It's like watching a new fight through different eyesight because now you're seeing things you didn't pick up before."
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Ralph, let's give you another plug, man, with what you got going on. Let's do the gym and the MMA Hall of Fame.
All right, so I own American Top Team Tampa, Carlson Gracie Tampa, which is the first gym ever to put both of them together because they were rivals for years. And I had Mike Giannis and guys like that telling me, "How'd you get that?" It's because I'm good friends with Dan Lambert and Conan, and they love Carlson Jr. And Carlson Jr. and Conan are like brothers, so it worked out where I was the first one to ever put them both together. I also own the Florida Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and that event is going to be November 16th here in beautiful Tampa, Florida, and we're inducting 15 Hall of Famers. And the way we do things is guys that have given back somehow in the MMA community, could be from ring announcing to promoting to matchmaking to fighting. But if you paid your dues and you did something to advance MMA, you have a chance of making the Florida Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame.
Bro, what you're doing on there is super cool. And, if I may make a recommendation for the following year,
Okay.
you got Sergio Bottarelli living in Fort Lauderdale, IVC president, in terms of pioneers doing big things, like when the UFC was still kind of cutting their teeth and barely making their payroll, this guy was doing events in Israel, all over the world, and I'm a huge fan of the IVC.
You know what, though? I don't even know who that is, but what I do, I take recommendations from people for that, and then I'll do my research and due diligence on the people. And like if someone like you that I trust and that I know knows their stuff, definitely he can go in next year.
Dude, I'm telling you this, I'm supposed to be recording him on Thursday. If it goes through, it's going to be mind-blowing. Like, absolutely. Like, he got Waleed to start. Like, all those shoot box guys cut their teeth in his organization. Kevin Randleman, Mark Coleman, Nick Nutter, they were going there doing headbutts and doing those fights back then. So,
Yeah, it's crazy how fast the sport's evolved. And like just thinking about when Miguel was talking about his career, 2019, 2024 all the way to 2000 and 1999, when all these guys were fighting. It feels like it was yesterday, but we look back at it, I'm like, oh my God, the years go by.
dude, he's a hell of a storyteller. They're really, like, if somebody were to buckle down and, there's highs and lows, and there's, family issues, personal issues. He's got everything. He's got everything to make a compelling series. He really does.
Yeah.
And he's still sounds good, looks good. He's still training. He's in the gym every day. Come on.
I know he was in a dark spot there for a few years. I'm glad he found his happy spot and he's doing what he loves still. Because to me, Miguel's a diamond. His knowledge and him giving back to this next generation. I'm sure we're going to see more guys produced under him. Because I remember going to his gym and seeing Neil Magny there grappling with my nephew when he was 15 years old, and my nephew was telling me, "This kid's going to be in the UFC when he's older." And Miguel's like, "Yeah, he's going to be there one day." And look, Neil Magny's had a long career.
Neil Magny's got 33 fights in the UFC, and very rarely has he ever won a first round. It's just he out-cardios you. He puts the work in. That's that Midwest grind. I know, like, you East and West Coasters might not be able to. You guys might not respect the Midwest like you guys, because we don't have a high of an athlete as the left and right coast. But bring your lunch to work, dude.
Oh, you're in for a long night. Yep.
Yeah, you're here for a long night, dude. Yep. We're getting your hands dirty. So, Ralph García, absolute pleasure. We have an absolute open door policy with you. Anytime you want to bring somebody on or come in and sit on the after show, it doesn't have to be about the guest. If you got stuff to plug, dude, I really respect what you're doing a lot, man, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you for having me. And definitely, I'm going to start working on Rashad Evans and King Mo this week. Get you one of those guys.
Dude, good research on Miguel. That was good shit, dude. There was some good shit in there, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it, man. Yeah.
Cool. All right, brother. Do your thing, man.
All right, brother. See you, man.
There. Yeah.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.